Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to the Hearthstone Grand Prix here at DreamHack Winter in Jönköping, Sweden. We are on day number 3. We've had a lot of Hearthstone be played out from many players over the past couple of days, but today is the final day. Top 8 is going to be played out and we're going to find out who is going to be the champion of the Hearthstone Grand Prix. Admirable, Lorinda, good morning. You're going to be kicking off the first match, but what's the journey been like so far? What's been the standout moments for you to get us to this top 8?
Something I'd love to see is just, again, the diversity that's been in this tournament throughout. We're at the end of the metagame for Knights of the Frozen Throne, and we're on the horizon of Kobolds and Catacombs. Still, today, in this tournament, in this weekend, we've seen innovation up to the very end, and that has just been unheard of so far in Hearthstone tournament play.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And the story that's coming out of this, now we're down to the top 8, is Finland. We have 3 Finnish players left in this tournament. A lot of these players worked together and brought the exact same lineup. We're going to see 2 of those guys fairly soon. One of them is Zumpp, because he's brought the lineup that everybody else brought from Finland, but Norage went on his own and he's brought something a little bit different. Yeah,
it's really impressive actually. Normally when we see, like not necessarily teams in the organizational sense, but teams in practice partners, groups of players who get ready for and prepare for a tournament together, like, oh yeah, we decide on this lineup. And normally the group of players are happy if a person makes it to say top 8.
Yeah.
It's like, we did it. It was a team effort. The lineup got there. 3? It's actually kind of silly.
They got 2 plus Yanetsky, who came like 17th or 18th, missed the tiebreaks, and then Norage went alone with a different group of Finland, B3X, help from Zorkthar, players like that, and he got there as well. So Finland had 4 7-2 or better players. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nuts. And Admirable, like, what do you think of? We've talked a lot about lineups for this tournament, as you said, they've been so diverse. Looking back, what is your favorite one that you've seen so far?
I think I'm in favor of just like the strong 4, so to speak, and that would be like the Zoo Warlock as the 4th one, the Druid, the Priest, the Rogue, and then Zoo is the 4th. I just like Zoo a lot because I think it's a very powerful deck. I really like the idea that you have to sometimes flex your tools, but for the most part you have a set forward game plan, and the mulligans matter a ton when you're playing a Zoo deck, and I think that is really a big aspect of it. They always matter, but I've really liked the Mage lineups as well. I think Mage has looked very strong, especially when it comes down to the end of a tournament. A lot of Rogues make it through, and Mage performs very well versus Rogue.
Yeah, that's the 3-2 lineup, as you've been calling it, where you get a lot of counterplay, a lot of counter picks against your opponent's lineup. Whereas the big 4 is just the I'm going to beat you because I have 4 good decks lineup.
Yeah, true variety is what we've been seeing so far in the tournament, and the deck lists are set, and the deck lists have been open since top 16. They were hidden for the Swiss portion, but now the players know exactly what they're up against when they face their opponent. We can check out who we actually have in the top 8. As always, unfortunately, due to time constraints, we could not actually show all of the top 16 matches yesterday, but this is what it looks like. Norage beats out Fairley. Then Zumpp beat out Tony Ramos, which we did see on stream yesterday. Unid continuing his very strong performance, beating out Spikes, and then Chacha Boys, which is just a glorious name, beat out Pardub, is someone who we have actually seen compete quite regularly over the past couple of years. And then Swaggermeist did end up taking out Panragon, which we saw yesterday on stream. Melon and Vardu went head-to-head, and Vardu ended up going on top. Then Vanik taking down Dalestorm, and then finally Zananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananananan two names that really stuck out to me were Xanadan and Zumpp, and both of them gone through to top 8.
I'm very impressed with the way that Zumpp has played so far. He's very patient in his play. You can tell he understands the exact moment when to turn that corner. And yesterday we saw it very clearly in one of his late game Stonehill defenders. He was playing Control Warlock versus Jade Druid. He had landed Skulking Geist to eliminate the Jade Idol potential. And then a Stonehill defender gave him the option of a bad taunt, Fen Creeper, and Lich King. Now, Fen Creeper, for all intents and purposes, a pretty bad taunt, but the Fen Creeper would have locked the position for him 100% of the time. He chose Fen Creeper over a Lich King.
Yes, it was insane looking, but it made a lot of sense when you put it in context.
Yeah, 100%. I really did like it, to be honest, because it's so tempting to say, well, Lich King's just an amazing card, but couldn't be played that turn. So that turn would have been Stonehill plus meh, like a bit of a weak one. So I really liked it, and I've liked watching Zumpp so far. He is going to be going up against Norage, and a bit of a funny story actually yesterday with Norage actually didn't realize he was through to top 16 until he actually found out seconds before he was due to play. So that's going to mess with you a little bit at that moment to be like, oh, okay, I'm out, and then next second it's like, oh, turn up and actually play a top 16 match.
Yeah, it's important that he's had a whole night to get out to recover from that, because that's going to be a massive adrenaline rush, and going into a top 8 straight after that would be pretty hard work. work.
It was kind of interesting to watch him yesterday. He was in a mage mirror match in Game 3 where he was on match point, and towards the end he's like shaking his head like, "Oh, this is a bad situation." And Sunline like, "This situation looks great. What's he doing?" I was curious if he was trying to send over an incorrect physical tell to his opponent.
Okay.
I'm curious if like that was like a real mind game or if he was actually uncomfortable about his position. But it was clear they had a long day yesterday, so that sleep. Great for him now in top 8.
Yeah, players refreshed, everyone refreshed and ready to go. Let's take a look at the picks and bans, see how this game is going to shape out for these players. Picks and bans and strategy has been a whole talking point of this tournament. Priests are gone. And it's going to be Druid, Rogue, and Mage versus Druid, Rogue, and Warlock. It is not a need, as you see on screen. It is, in fact, Norage. That is not a need. It's just a slight issue. There we go. Fix with the magic of production.
And not really much of a surprise that we're seeing the Priest banned out on both sides here. And it's not just because that deck's so powerful. It's because both of the players have brought aggro Druid instead of any other variant of Druid. And that deck can really struggle to Priest at times if you do not hit just one of those ultimate power curves. In addition to that, the Rogue can sometimes struggle to Priest as well. So they're playing straightforward to beat down the other's beatdown deck.
Yeah, so anyway, not to interrupt you, Admirable, but you can continue your thoughts in a second. We are getting the first match underway, so enjoy.
That's right. Before Raven rudely interrupted me, I was talking about strategy and helping people to learn about things out there.
Can you help me learn things?
Well, I was going to hope you could help me learn some stuff.
We'll give it a go. We'll teach each other then as this game goes by.
So talk to me more specifically about these guys and what's been going on with them. You typically have a laundry list of stats for the two of them, and so I think it's something we'd like to hear about.
So Norage has been a competitor for a long time. He's been in a lot of events. But let's just go into the game while I talk about these guys and have a look at what they've got. He has been around a long time. He won a Norwegian LAN, a big one this year, but he's never really had that big breakout performance. Following on Twitter, you get a lot of information from him. He's one of those players. Zumpp is his second DreamHack. He's 17 wins and 3 losses at DreamHack.
That's it?
That's it, 85%.
Just 3 losses?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
He reached the semi-finals his first attempt, he did quarterfinals his second attempt.
It really doesn't get much better than that. Like when you improve on your previous performance, that's a tall order.
It's going to be good going if he can do it.
And this one is looking like it could be a little bit rough for him. I think this is a decent matchup for him playing against aggro Druid with the Control Warlock. A lot of anti-aggro tools built into Zumpp's lineup here. But Crazed Alchemist in hand is going to make short order of this Doomsayer. That is a one-of copy of Crazed Alchemist for Norage. And so Zumpp now is going to have to figure out how to make this hand work. He's got Defile, he's got the Tar Creeper, and he's got a Siphon Soul maybe for one of those big hitting minions. I'm looking specifically at the Cobalt Scalebanes that are in Norage's deck. But that Crazed Alchemist did throw a wrench in the plans. But this deck, this Control Warlock deck, when you tune it to beat aggro, by gosh, it does a good job at doing that.
Yeah, it sure does, and Zumpp is the master. We saw yesterday just holding on to those AoE spells, but this time he's going to end up having to use one pretty early with this Defile just to clear stuff up and hope there's no living mana.
Yeah, that's a big one, is the living mana. It can be a huge hit to this. There is only one copy of Hellfire in Zumpp's deck, but he's come prepared with a lot of taunt minions to try to stave off damage, just little bits here and there. We see 2 Sarnite Chain Gangs. Again, he's got the 2 Heart Creepers and 2 Stonehill Defenders. So the lack of buff early on here for Norage could be a bit of a problem, but Zumpp is yet to set up a strong Defile. He needs some help with this, and in the meantime, just going to have to play stuff in the way.
That's the thing you can put in the way, the Chain Gang coming up there. So, it's interesting because if you're banning Priest in the current meta, with the exception of Mage, Taunt minions are basically added health. Warlock struggles to gain health in the current meta game. It doesn't have very good cards. Earthing Farseer has long since become kind of obsolete in a lot of decks. But if you just play a load of Taunt minions, ban out Priest, that's basically life gain.
It really is. They're strong minions that your opponent doesn't want to use removal on if they have it. And in the meantime, a lot of the minions right now, they fight straight up. Yeah. So they get chipped away and then they get eaten up by AoE cards, and that's just a very strong way to build Control Warlock right now. And no buff for Norage means that this is going to be no good. It's been a struggle in the early game so far. He did land the big Crazed Alchemist, but this is a matchup where you need to draw ways to take advantage of board.
And Norage also will be planning how to play around, if possible, Defile. There's times when Defile is just so powerful, you just have to go and do stuff and hope they don't have it, because there's so many ways to set that up for players.
And we're quickly approaching that territory. Again, with no buff, he has no big minion to play, he has no living mana. This is looking like he may have to start dumping stuff on board and just hope the AoE's not there. That's the losing position if you're this aggro druid deck.
Right.
Notice that Norage is really taking his time and sacrificing the Direwolf Alpha to make his board more resilient against Defile.
Yeah, that's pretty heads-up play there. He knows that it's one of the ways he just loses the game. But
oh boy.
the problem with the Crypt Lord is it's really good at defending your board, but if you haven't got a board to defend, it doesn't get much done in a hurry.
Yeah, and something to note here is that Zumpp knows that Crazed Alchemist is gone, so the Crypt Lord doesn't represent that weird spike of damage of flipping the health and the attack around.
So Zumpp will be looking for a way to play here that doesn't involve using any of his important spells, just trying to work out if you can afford to tap. That's something you always have to plan against when you're playing against aggro decks, because you can tap yourself to death if you're not too careful.
Yeah, I definitely think that Geist is a reasonable play here as well. It does use his coin to do that, but it takes out Mark of the Lotus. If Norage pretty much at any point draws the Mark of the Lotus right now, it's bad for him. But the thing about it is if he lands it with living mana and then it's on tap, that could be lights out. And so Zumpp sacks his Mortal Coils, blows up those Mark of the Lotus, but he's got a 4/6 on board now.
Yeah, and his own Mortal Coils leaving is actually probably good for him on balance. Okay, it helps you set up a Defile sometimes, but on balance, you'd probably rather draw your bigger stuff now you're going into turn 6.
Yeah, he's looking at the heavy hitters at this stage. And there's Scalebane. And Scalebane is drawn what looks like after he might be able to force a Siphon Soul here.
Yeah, he really might. And I mean, Zumpp will be looking for an opportunity to Siphon Soul sooner rather than later in this particular matchup, because the health gain is so important.
Wow, look at that. Patch's trade-in is quite interesting to me.
Well, it's just playing around Defile again.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does.
And Zumpp has a lot of options. He does this so well, gets these options together, and now he's going to have to make the right one. He's got to play around Savage Roar as far as he's concerned.
Oh, yeah.
And he also doesn't want to do too much, of course, living mana.
There's a lot of pressure here. Hellfire or Defile would have to be held if you're in this spot.
Yeah, and yeah, he's going to draw that Siphon out and just take the value trade.
So 11 damage would be, 12 damage would be on deck with just Savage Roar alone. So he is safe from just Savage Roar. Another Crypt Lord. And just anything to hold the fort down while this 4 damage clocks away over and over. This is where Norage can find a win here, is just that repetitive damage.
And the way he's going to get this win, if he does manage to land this win, it's because he's tiptoed around Defile really carefully for the entire game. He's never set up an easy situation. Okay, there were times if Zumpp had Mortal Coil Defile, then sure, but he didn't have those. You've got to play around sensible amounts of math.
2 cards combinations are way harder than just the single card.
And they're going to beat you. I mean, 2 card combinations are there to beat you. That's what they're going to do. You don't play around them so much.
Big respect here to Norage to take it slow and rely on drawing a key card to unlock this damage rather than just pushing all in. A lot of times when your back's against the wall, you do have to make that decision. And a lot of times pushing all in is great. But when you have ways to play around stuff and your deck still has good draws, by all means play around it. And that's worked out fantastically for Norage so far. If he hadn't, he would have no chance in this game.
Yeah, as it is, this last bit of damage, the way his hand currently looks, is going to be quite hard to find. Dreadlord just a little slow at the moment. Feel like...
For whatever reason, that's a 3 on the health on the Geist, right?
Yes, I believe so, but I've seen an update on one of the servers where the red is sort of red and white, and you can see it much easier, but that is a 3.
So, does he have any sort of like a Mistress Defile Hellfire play here that mops this up? I mean, that's just like, I feel like that might be too much to use.
Yeah, I wonder if he just trades the Geist into the Cobalt and defiles the 2 smaller minions, drop a Taunt.
It's something in that area. You know, he's quite safe from that. There are no silences. There's not like a big removal spell in Norage's deck. If he sets up just taunts in the way from this spot, you know, he can skate on a relatively low life total as long as he's got a way to check living mana.
Yeah, and keeping that Hellfire as long as he can. Getting the Mistress down is important because Norage is never going to trade into that. So you've now got the option to trade it if you don't Hellfire. to gain that 4 health to keep yourself alive.
And Zumpp's looking good. Norage has not drawn a single board-wide buff for this game. And he's starting to run out of cards. I mean, Aggro Druid's packed with low-end cards. There's Living Mana, there's Cobalt Scalebane. Those are the only 2 cards that cost more than 4.
Right. Yeah, and he's in a good spot now. What I like to see when someone's playing Control is against aggro, against super aggro like this, is how they manage to keep back the important cards but still play all their other cards. You see inexperienced players dying with like 7 cards in their hand. It's like, well, what do those 7 cards do for you?
And now with Twisting Nether available to fight against a Living Mana, the Hellfire's just not good enough here in this spot, but with Zumpp having that Stonehill, I think he's got plenty of time in this position lest he run exactly into Savage Roar next turn.
Yeah.
But even this could just provide another taunt. And Giant Mastodon honestly doesn't look that bad, but he's going to reinforce his position this turn, it looks like.
So this is the decision he made yesterday we were talking about at the start of the show. Do you take the big thing or the thing that stops you dying immediately?
That's a good question. He ends up opting for Hired Gun. And I do find that quite interesting. I think if you're going to end up playing the Dreadlord this turn anyway, that the Giant Mastodon is a considerable take. Yeah,
I was thinking that as well. But the Hired Gun gives him choices going forward.
Look at that. Norage was about 1 turn off of winning this game with a big Savage Roar push. This was so close, but now the Savage Roar just looks awful.
It does.
And I think that is the absolute recovery point for Zumpp. He's got Hellfire again to deal with Living Mana. He's got Twisting Nether for the 2nd Living Mana.
Yeah. From Norage's point of view, he has to hope for the Living Mana. He doesn't know about the AoE. He's got to hope it's not there. Maybe try and force one out of them some other way.
He's going to roar right away.
Yeah, it forces a little bit more damage to face. I guess he's thinking, got to do it. I assume there are no swipes in his deck. Just got to double check here.
Nope, the Aggro Druids have cut that sense of utility from their deck. They have 1 game plan and 1 game plan only.
And especially as this is a tournament setting, so you don't need things like, there's no Hydra either, right? So
no, he opted for the Scalebanes in this.
You don't need that little bit of versatility you might need on ladder in a tournament. This is focused to do this job, to kill the rogues in particular. And
I quite like the Scalebanes because it doesn't offer the weird aggressive counter potential because he's banning out Priest anyway. The Scalebanes offer you, like, when you have 1 small minion in play, suddenly becomes a minion that trades up really well. And that 2nd Dreadlord is going to lock Norage actually pretty much out of this game. He has nothing left that lives.
Notice he could play that and the Hired Gun in the same turn.
And look at that. 1-0 for Zumpp. And that is a win that is fairly often expected when he lands that matchup. Because, again, this Control Warlock deck that Zumpp has brought is really tuned towards anti-aggression. If you look at the top end, there's 1 Abyssal Enforcer. There's 2 Twisting Nethers, 1 Lich King, 1 Medivh, 1 Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
Okay.
The rest of this is dedicated to blowing stuff up.
And those Tar Creepers just getting in the way, giving you that extra 5 health is a really good solution to the problem that Warlock has of gaining no health right now. Yeah. Or very little health.
Tar Creeper was thought to be one of the anti-aggro cards early on, but what ended up happening is it just snuck into a bunch of aggro decks to protect their small important minions. Zumpp is showing the, I think, intended use of this card originally, which is get in the way.
Yeah, there was a while where you couldn't play much defensive taunts just because mages were busy blowing your face off. Like, that's what mages have been doing for a while.
And this matchup is a really tough one for Zumpp for sure. The burn potential from Norage is very high, and that's typically a big problem for Warlock. You want to take a look exactly how much burn is in here. 2 Fireballs, 2 Firelands Portals, Alexstrasza, Pyroblast, the Frostbolts, the Glyphs, and then a Medivh to apply pressure.
Well, that's a lot. That's more than usual.
The Medivh pressure isn't really that much for Zumpp to deal with because he's got, again, the 2 Twisting Nethers and the 2 Siphon Souls. I think the big thing that's to look for here is if Norage can get some early chip damage, the burn potential is very real. But that's not really his goal in this matchup, I don't think. I think the main goal is to find an Alexstrasza turn and then start launching burn at your opponent's face. The one situation that Zumpp can recover is if he's able to get a Blood Reaver Gul'dan out before you see that Alexstrasza turn hit. That can be a big problem for Norage. And chip damage is again, pretty much off the table with Tar Creepers and Chain Gangs, the Stonehill Defenders. It's just really not going to work that well. So Norage's game plan really is just look for card draw.
One thing I've liked about the Freeze Mage sort of builds in this is Freeze Mage is no longer an archetype as such. The real pure Freeze Mage is kind of dead. But this is now a version of Freeze Mage that we can happily call Freeze Mage. People call it other things, but It's basically Freeze Mage in a slightly more modern shell.
Yeah, to me it just looks like good Mage. It's just a lot of good cards that work in Mage very well. It has Mana Worms.
Yep.
Again, it's got Doomsayers, but it's got Arcanologist and Medivh's Valet. That's just a weird looking package to have. But the idea is that you just want a fairly flexible game plan for the most part.
And a very distinct win condition that you don't have to use in Alexstrasza.
Yep. Alexstrasza is quite a flexible card, even though it's most suited in offense. It's quite strong. And Norage now, the Arcanologist thinned out the secrets, but he drew the third one naturally. And he is really lacking in Arcane Intellects and Acolyte the Pain right now.
He really is. He's only got one Acolyte in the deck, right?
Yeah. 2 Glyphs, 2 Arcane Intellects, 1 Acolyte, and then his next best draws, I would say, are somewhere in the neighborhood of Medivh and Alexstrasza.
Something else we sort of skirted in the opening with this particular match is, obviously this is a fairly rare matchup in the current metagame, but with open deck lists and these guys both having good support groups around them, these guys could have played this matchup 100 times last night.
Yeah. I mean, the open decklist stage is a really unique one. I've always been a big surprise of the hidden element and that surprise factor catching people. But when decklists are open, you see players able to craft game plans. And honestly, the game plans look quite weird in a lot of situations.
Right.
But when you have that 100% information...
And 7 good friends who are good at Hearthstone.
You're able to craft those styles of game plans. And I love to see it happen. But in this one, Norage has not really found the ideal hand for him. The freezes... For Blizzard and such, he wants to save those and try to convert those into Medivh minions via the Atiesh. He doesn't want to be fending off damage himself. And so he's not under a ton of pressure here, but this will eventually compound. And as he expends burn, it's going to be harder and harder for him to finish the game.
Well, there's an Alexstrasza that helps him at least decide which game plan he's going to go with, whereas before it's like a survival game plan and hope. Now he has a game plan he can plan around if he doesn't need to use that defensively, because Zumpp's ragtail collection of gibberish is actually starting to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised that Zumpp chose to go with the Mistress of Mixtures here. A lot of times you see players just save the healing until post Alexstrasza and try to Siphon Soul, drop down the Mistresses, and sustain as much as you can. He's opted against that, and a terrible drop off the portal.
Yeah, this doppelganger looks lost without his friends. He has no idea where he is. What am I even doing on this board?
It's true that. And the pressure starts.
Yep. And
that's kind of what I mean by that Mistress of Mixtures. That that just died in the wind.
It did. He's maybe trying to empty things out of his hands. There's some cards he'll never get to cast that are going to clutter his hand up, like these Twisting Nethers. They're just dead in this match.
They're pretty darn dead. So hand size, I definitely would think is a part of that. How much more does Zumpp really want to life tap?
Well, he's bought himself 2 more cards. Maybe he values those 2 more cards as doing more than 4 damage to his opponent.
He needs to find Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
Yes.
That is a paramount card for him to find.
So yeah, even though we're looking at the beatdown aspect, he does gain those extra 2 cards from the Mistress of Mixtures over time, which may be a big deal. Like right now, he can afford to tap a bit because he's managed to stay on 27.
Yeah, your first 10 or so life is fairly expendable as the Warlock.
Yeah.
Because again, you expect to get Alexstrasza a lot of times.
Yeah, you stay a little bit above to make sure they have to do it, but yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to have to heal and then they Alex you and you have nothing left. Like that's a pretty dire situation. And Zumpp is looking a tad uncomfortable with the way this game's panning out so far.
Yeah, he's got a handful of clutter that he's not really been able to dump on the board. He's drawn all of his anti-control stuff, which is anti-aggro stuff, which is kind of what the deck does. It's going to draw a lot of anti-aggro stuff, of course it is. And I find these matchups fascinating when you're trying to turn your deck that isn't built to do a job to do that job. You see it with Highlander Pre-slot where they have to go beat down sometimes.
Wow. 6 to the dome.
But look now, Norage has the 15 damage set up. 2 fireballs, 1/3 damage.
Yeah, this is about as good as it gets. 6, 7, 8 damage for Zumpp. He's nowhere close to popping that ice block, and an Alexstrasza here is going to put Zumpp in a big hurt if he chooses to drop that.
Yeah, I mean he would die if he didn't find a way to blow his own Mistress up next turn.
Yeah, he's got the Siphon Soul, of course.
Yeah, that's the way of getting 3 back.
I mean, you're nailing 10 with the Alex here, and I think this is about as good as you're going to get with it. He's at a safe life total himself, and he's got 3 freezes to follow this up.
What to do?
Yeah, and he's got a deck full of burn, so he can he can freeze and freeze and freeze, just looking for that last piece of burn, even after the Siphon Soul.
Now, I will say that yesterday we did see Norage play his matchups very differently. He was very patient with it and was waiting for more critical mass or to see his opponent use more resources. And he's going to follow suit in that exact same thing. He wants a better Alexstrasza position. And this is quite interesting. So his game plan is to land Alexstrasza and then actually push Mana Worm through to chip some more of that damage. And in the meantime, this causes Zumpp to have to just use more resources.
Yeah,
but this gives him more time to find Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
It does. You could also maybe set up a situation where you Alex onto... Well, maybe you couldn't. Don't worry about that. We'll go back to the Blood Reaver Gul'dan discussion. That's much better. So if he gets Gul'dan, obviously Alexstrasza becomes much worse because you start to heal really rapidly out of the danger zone. And the fact it has some inevitability with a ping is just the side effect.
And this is a brick wall that Norage has run into here. I don't think he's really going to get any minion damage through in this spot, but he is extending his life total as well. I mean, clearing off a 6 power attack turn after turn is not something to scoff at. You know, when Zumpp shows that he's willing to attack you instead of your Mana Worm, with that Abyssal Enforcer, it does raise an eyebrow a bit.
Yeah. And again, the deck list open. We've got all that burn you read out at the start is in Zumpp's head right now.
What to do?
Yeah, highlight of this play again from both players, just the patience.
That's been something I've noticed from a lot of the players in this tournament as well, is that they're considering the full range of what can happen to them. You know, say Norage plays that Alexstrasza that turn, and then Siphon Soul comes out, and then a Mistress gets dropped down, and then all of a sudden he doesn't have the burn to finish,
right.
And then a Blood Reaver Gul'dan comes out, and then the Blood Reaver Gul'dan heals back all that health. You go, oh, geez. Well, now what?
Oh my goodness, yeah, I'm going to get into trouble. Another reason that I think it happens is minions have higher health these days than they have attack for the large part. So they stick on the board more. So you're actually always planning 2 or 3 turns ahead. Like, how do I get rid of this 111? What am I going to do about it? Rather than before, where you just, I'll trade my 4-3 into your 3-4 because there's a swap.
Big draw for Zumpp. And I think he's free to play the Doomsayer here as well. So now the Doomsayer threatens the Alexstrasza quite a bit because the Alexstrasza, if it hit, would die to the Doomsayer. And any minion Norage plays would end up dying to this Doomsayer. So Fireland's Portal Medivh's Valet could give him presence on the board, but that's more burn he's sticking into stuff and trying to get board presence. Yeah, this Blood Reaver Gul'dan, I think, changed the landscape.
Yeah, you don't like to have to Alex into that Doomsayer. Sometimes it's good because it sets up what looks like a lethal, but how does Zumpp gain health if he doesn't have Gul'dan here? It's a good way of playing around Siphon Soul. If you play your Alex now, say, well, you're going to blow up everything on the board. You can't gain 3 from Siphon. I've got 15 in hand. Maybe he looks at it that way.
And again, look back at how this game would have panned out if he'd played Alexstrasza. You would have seen Siphon Soul, you would have seen the Mistress come down, and then you would have seen Norage Blizzard and fight for that board pressure again. But Zumpp would be Sans Siphon Soul, Sans Mistress, and Mixtures. He'd be plus some more health. You'd fight for the board. Your opponent plays Blood Reaver Gul'dan. You still have this burn left. You know, is that better or worse? I don't know. That's a tough call.
I think Norage is sure, but I like this. This just says if you haven't got Gul'dan, you cannot Siphon. You probably can't Mistress, and I'm going to kill you next turn. But unfortunately for him,
it's Gul'dan.
It is Gul'dan.
And that might be a big lead here for Zumpp. Now, he hasn't secured it just yet.
Right.
But that's a lot of board. And this is 3 extra health he's gaining a turn now.
That's a Frostbolt every single turn's worth of damage that Norage has got to find. He has got a Pyro in his deck.
And he just drew another Frostbolt, so 15, 18. He's got 23 damage over the next, what looks like 2 turns.
And Zump's got 8 healing next turn. He can Siphon his own Mistress if needed. He won't, and he can also gain from his own Siphon life. So he's got 8 more to come.
The last thing he has to blow up that's big is Medivh. And when he's got this much stuff in hand, and he's going to see these fireballs and these pings and stuff, Norage is going to say, you know what, this is going to take me longer than just 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah.
I'm going to start squeezing out my damage now. And Zumpp is likely forced, I think, to use a Siphon Soul here.
What you said there's really important. He knows it's going to take 2 or 3 turns. Those extra pings will add up to 3 or 4 damage over the course of those turns. He's looking to create extra damage in his deck, and that's a way to do it.
He's going to draw a card here.
Nice. Zumpp just always finds the creative option to get himself that extra little bit.
Yeah, he's definitely got to click that button.
Yeah. That's the don't lose the game button right now.
So now, left in Norage's hand, he's got 11 plus 3, 14 plus ping, that's 15, plus another ping, that's 16. That's going to take him 2 turns, so that's 2 more hero powers for Zumpp.
Okay.
He's got to find
20.
7 more damage.
Yeah, then
so
you
we look
can
at
see.
Pyroblast, Primordial Glyph could bring it.
And that's what he can see. There's Siphons, there's... I think he's used both Mistress, so they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, the healing left for Zumpp is the hero power and the 2 Siphons.
Not the card he was looking. Look at this hand. It's not the hand you want if you're Zumpp right now. He's going to have to win it with the hero power and this board.
Siphon Soul the Blood Mage.
Extra life, extra card.
And Lich King could provide healing as well. But does he have the time for that? Norage, with second Ice Block in hand, he's still got plenty of time to live, but that time is only supposed to unlock damage. So he's got to draw damage or this game's going to go to Zumpp.
But if he does draw that damage, and there's a lot of it in there, although he's used a lot of it, then it could well still go the other way.
That is inconsequential at this point.
Yeah. So the Lich King could be relevant here. Depending on how the damage pans out.
I don't know where Norage finds the damage from at this stage, because now, look at this. Zumpp's going to go up to 13.
Yep.
And then Medivh's Valet drops him to 10, Ping drops him to 9, he goes up to 12. Pyroblast doesn't kill him in that spot.
Yeah, he's got to find relentlessly more than 3 a turn. He's used both fireballs.
He's going to use both Firelance portals.
He drew that goal down exactly at the right time. 1 turn later, I think this goes the other way.
I don't disagree with you.
It just shows the importance of drawing every last card you can.
Frostmourne's of no consequence. There's a Pyro, but he can't play it this turn, and he cannot set Zumpp down to a life total where the hero power will not pull him above 10. His one hope to get this done is play Ice Block, you Medivh's Valet your opponent, you ping your opponent, and you hope that they hit you with the hero power first.
Okay.
If that happens, the Ice Block activates and makes you immune. So Zumpp would gain no health in that instance.
Sure.
The only way Norage wins this is if Zumpp makes a mistake.
You can find a glyph. Is there a glyph that can do it?
Not at this stage.
Just too late. Zumpp gets another 3 health off the top here.
That's
what
right.
that card says, right? 6 mana, gain 3 health.
And
he
Norage,
loves it.
He's shaking his head. He knows exactly what this means. And Zumpp, why not? Throw in that extra life. And Norage out of Ice Blocks. He would need the crazy out of Primordial Glyph of the Kabbalist Tome Chain for Infinite.
Right. It's possible. It's starting.
No, not like, nah.
You reckon?
Nah.
Just channel your inner Akka Wonder.
Wow, so close, but not quite there. Zumpp takes 2 in a row with Control Warlock, and Norage losing that matchup is dire.
Last hero standing, lose your counter pick. Always a bad spot to be in. But we've seen people come back from it before, but it really hurts.
If you got a third deck to do it with, you know, Rogue's going to be one of the contenders.
Yeah.
There's not really any question about that.
We've seen plenty of rogue sweeps this week.
We indeed have, and Norage's deck is very straightforward on the Rogue side.
Okay.
Nothing tricky in here. It's the Shaku, it's the Serenites, it's the Cairn, it's the Bone Mare.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's all this creativity we've seen, but Rogue just doesn't change. No matter how creative people are being, we've seen it just be the same in every single deck, give or take 1 or 2 cards.
It took a while to get to this iteration,
It did,
too. You know, I saw so much change in this deck in such a short period of time. People went, wait a minute, this deck's pretty darn powerful. And they just kept going at it, and turn after turn after turn, and day after day, it just eventually got to the shell that we have now, and it's very strong. And it'll stay that way for a while.
His hand's very strong. Plenty of options for Norage going into turn 3. He's got an awful turn 2 to come up. That's what happens if you don't draw your prince.
Well, he does have 2 of the, I think, more valuable cards in the matchup with Edwin Van Cleef and with Shaku.
Yep.
Zumpp is not playing a copy of Spellbreaker. So Edwin Van Cleef can be problematic if it's big enough.
And early enough.
And early enough.
To get around the siphon.
Yep.
And it looks like it can be both big enough and early enough here. And he's going to have...
It's a really interesting spot.
I always like to see how people approach Shadow Step with Edwin. Like how desperate they are. You tend to not want to do that because it's just a waste of a Shadow Step, but sometimes you're desperate enough that you just go, here's a 10-10, eyes closed, let's go.
Well, here's something I'm looking at. Zumpp's got a ton of taunts in his deck.
Okay.
Again, the Sarah Knights, Tar Creeper, Stonehills. The Leroy Shadow Step plan, I don't think is a very viable one in this matchup due to that. There's Zump's almost always going to time some sort of disruption around a turn like that. So because of that, I think the Shadow Step is much more seated in value in this matchup than just about anything else. So the question for that then is, where can you generate that value from? And that's where you look to, protecting a Shaku again. That's where you look for landing it on a Vile Spine Slayer.
Yeah, those Vile Spines are insane, killing 2 big taunts. Yeah, Bone Mare, like you say, if you can force that damage through, but Vile Spine's a natural choice.
You got to play the hand you're dealt too, though. I mean, sometimes you may have to Shadow Step just literally to make that big Edwin. But as we're now moving into 3 mana for Zumpp, what that means is he makes an Edwin, it'd get in 1 shot, and then it would die to a Siphon Soul. So a play like this one delays the Edwin, and then the big Edwin looks like it's off the board in fear of that big Siphon Soul.
Yeah.
So now the Shadow Step is great. He can attack with Shaku. That just opens up for him for a free card. Shadow Step back to hand and get ready to make the big Edwin afterwards. You present the multi-dynamic threat that way. Or you could just kill it straight up as well. I'm totally fine with this.
Yeah.
This makes the big Edwin now.
And this makes the big Edwin without wasting anything. He might well keep this Shadow Step because he's now got that second Swashbuckler, which is not the best of targets, but it's a target.
It's not only that, but it's come down alongside now a 6-power Shaku.
Yes.
So Zumpp has 2 different things he has to deal with in this spot, and this is the ideal situation for Norage to create pressure.
Needs another mana if he wants to play the Chain Gang and stick a Doomsayer behind it, so that's not going to happen. So he's got to get creative, and he's got to get creative quickly, and he's just going to buy time.
This is a great aggressive play from Norage. The timing of it, the Shaku was a big catalyst to this situation, and now with this Cobalt Scalebane as well, what this means is he's going to have the 6-1 Shaku, the 6-4 Edwin, the 5-5 Scalebane, and one of them's getting a 3-power buff.
Yeah, and no danger of like Hellfire ruining your day because worst case the Scalebane survives. That's plenty.
Hellfire Coin Defile would be the big one. There's 1 copy of Hellfire in Zumpp's deck.
Yeah, it must be hard playing against Zumpp as well when you know that he is the guy who just holds onto everything longer than almost anybody else in Hearthstone. Like normally you just pretty much slam the Scalebane here and you know they haven't got it, they didn't use it last turn. But you know that Zumpp finds these creative ways to defend. And this could be one of them. It's in your head. Has he got a clear?
Well, the other thing too for Norage is is there ever Shadow Step viability here again too? Protecting yourself against this couple of useless demons.
What are they called? You happen to remember?
Useless.
Worthless imps?
Worthless imps or
Something.
useless imps?
Yeah, they're both of those 2 things
think,
anyway.
Actually. And this also plays around that Hellfire spot where instead of getting the Scalebane down, you just test him. He goes, you know what? If you want to siphon the Edwin, great. I get another hit with Shaku. You want to kill the Shaku? Great. I get to hit with that one.
Yeah, you want to Defile? Go for it. You want to Zealot Defile? Go for that. Just getting all those numbers on key places. And there is the Defile again.
Zumpp still with plenty of time here, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
So Doomsayer now can play the role of Holy Light. Where you play it and you go, heals for 7. Good enough. But he might be looking for bigger turns with that. I don't think he is because of the fear of Vile Spine later on. I think taking 7 health out of this is a pretty darn good deal.
The Doomsayer is particularly good in this matchup, though. Sorry, in this deck, not in this matchup, because you can hide it behind taunts. A lot of times, like Freeze Mage, you play it with alongside your freezes. Okay, that's fine. But hiding it behind taunts is so good. But he's doing what you're saying. He's gaining 6.
It's the flexibility of the card that really, I think, speaks to how powerful it is.
Yeah.
It really puts your opponent to the test and forces them to take action. Those are typically the best styles of cards in the game, is when it changes the way your opponent plays.
Like the times that it fell into Druid were the times that people were thinking, I'll have that behind my Spreading Plagues.
Oh, yeah.
That's why Druid started playing it for a while. These taunts. They're good.
Card.
Yeah. One of the first things you learn as a new player is taunt's a bit overrated as a beginner. You look at it, you go, oh, that's really good, and then they all die because they've got 1 attack, and you're like, oh, that didn't work. But we're having to rewrite what we know at the moment in Hearthstone. He just had...
Oh, that replaces all his Warlock cards, right?
Oh.
So he can actually get the worthless imps and then replace them.
With not worthless imps.
Interesting.
That might be something he can do
That actually could
later if needed.
That could be like actually valuable. That's weird.
Because Zumpp's going to try and run him out of resources, and he will, if he wins the game, he will do that, and that will give Norage a Hail Mary right at the end. Is like, let's see what we can get. A few more cards.
Yeah, this is a turn of discomfort for Zumpp, who is going, please don't bone marrow, please don't bone marrow, please don't bone marrow, please don't bone marrow.
And then usually, we talked about this yesterday, that just summons the bone mare.
Yeah, you say it 3 times and he appears.
So Zumpp obviously isn't doing that. He's too calm to say that in his head.
Yeah.
That's why it's not there.
So many options.
Players all around the world now trying not to think. Please don't bone mare. Don't do it, guys.
Zumpp keeps looking up at Norage as well. He's looking across his monitor. I mean, these guys are literally right across from each other.
Yeah.
He keeps looking up, and I'm curious if he's trying to pick up any information on the comfort level from Norage.
Yeah, I mean, he's been here before. This is a big deal. I mean, Norage is an experienced player. Let's not mess around here. He's been on stages before. He's played big matches before. But Zumpp has sat on this exact stage 6 months ago in the exact same situation and knows he came out winning that day.
Yeah, Scalebane, I think, is pretty equally bad to the Bone Mare turn here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a weird, bad-looking turn for Zumpp. He's got Twisting Nether to buy him out of this, but I'm curious how Norage reacts to the play that's going to be made here. You got to blow up your own Mortal Coil. You might as well just get the point of damage.
Yeah,
back.
there's the cold blood out of the way. So that's a little bit of peace of mind, at least. It was going to be a bad turn, so he just settled for some board presence.
Oh, 12 from Leroy, 9 from board, 21, 22 damage available with Dagger.
That changed quick.
So again, this is my question now too, though. Is like, does Norage really need to like push into the board state here? I don't necessarily think he does, because when your opponent makes this weak of a play, you then are pinned in one of 2 directions. Number one, they have Lich King, and you're like, geez, I don't have enough to push through that. Or they Twisting Nether, and they lose a lot for this. Because right now, the Geist is not contesting even the Tar Creeper.
You do have to think, though, if one of those cards could well be Gul'dan. So you want to get this done.
But pushing 9 to face, 10 to face with Dagger.
That's a lot.
And again, this Renounced Darkness, I think, is a real thing for Norage to consider. Getting the Imps and then using that Renounced Darkness, that could net him damage from the replacements.
Really
it could get him a new hero power that pushes damage in this spot.
Big green hero power
I don't
that
think
Raven would love.
It would be fantastic right now for Norage.
This is crazy.
He's going to push into the board, though. Oh, Blood Mage drawn means that Defile's a possibility now instead.
Can he do anything after? Yes, he can. He can set up the taunt as well. Defile's a great card. Not just because it's a great card, but because it's a really interesting card to have to play with.
It's a pretty darn great card.
Plenty to check here for Zumpp. Like, it's easy when you're just watching.
Hang on. Can he not Defile here, actually?
That's what I'm trying to work out.
Oh, no, he can't, because the Blood Mage dies with it. So it deals 2 damage.
So just 2, then
dies,
1.
and deals 1. Oh, no, that's not a possibility.
So it doesn't stack like the Zealot because the Zealot lives through it. He's looking for something.
So this is looking like attack and then Defile and then Tar Creeper?
Yeah. Why not? It's only a little bit terrifying. I guess we can see the Leroy Shadow Step, so we know it's more terrifying.
Look at Zumpp. Zumpp just keeps looking. He's like almost staring at Norage at times to try to get some sort of read here. This is interesting.
Pavel-esque.
Pavel tends to do that when he's in live play too.
Yeah, he does.
I remember that. In Bahamas, him and Doc Pone had that moment where
Yeah, Doc Pone just laughed.
well, Pavel caught Doc Pone looking at him, and then Doc Pone's like, what? And then Pavel's got such a playful personality. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky enough to hang out with him for a little bit recently and realize just how insane he is.
Oof.
Okay.
I think I would like to see the Sense Demons first. I would have given him an extra piece of stuff to work with.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know if maybe he missed that.
Maybe he doesn't know that. I mean, how often do you know the interaction between worthless, whether or not senseless demons
I
pulls
happen
anything?
to know that one, but there's a lot of interactions like that that I don't know, and even the pro players, you don't practice that.
You know, it's funny. The only reason I even know that is because when Hearthstone came out in like 2013, like the open beta,
Yeah.
I went back and I was just reading a website of all the token cards that were weird, and I was like, what makes these? And I read the Worthless Imps, and I was like, this is not a card in the game. Like, nothing makes this. And so I just started using every single Warlock card I could until I figured out that it was.
Oh, it didn't say what they were. You had to actually go and like try and error it. Okay.
Oh, Vile Spine.
That's a lot. Is that enough? Can't play the Leroy twice this turn.
So Earthen Scales, Vile Spine would give him 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. I'm sorry that I counted out loud. It just helps me make sure that I do it right. I've done it wrong so many times, I figure I might as well do it right.
Yeah, they might as well hear how we count it wrong. At least everyone understands our thought process of wrongness then. But yep, he's going to go for exactly that though.
This sets up that Leroy.
He also gets to keep the Shadow Step for the Vile Spine in face of a big taunt, or the Leroy Shadow Step if there isn't.
That's the thing, is Zumpp, remember, using that Defile instead of the Twisting Nether, now may come back to hurt him, because his goal is to put taunts in the way of Leroy.
Right.
And Norage has set up a board where that's not a possibility.
And you talked about this on turn 2, that this Shadow Step with Edwin, maybe you save it for later on for Vile Spine, Bone Mare, Leroy. Here they are, and here's the reward for holding on to it.
Like, I'm looking at, like, can Zumpp afford to, like, maybe obliterate or something? And I think he's dead.
Looks grim. If where he's sat, he can afford to, like, Nether. But he'll have a fairly strong feeling that one of those cards
He's got Nether, I think, is the conclusion here.
Yeah.
And so not having that Defile and setting up the board instead, it ends up costing Zumpp in the end. Leroy, Shadow Step, game 4.
Game 4. Counter picks. Who needs them?
Wow, that's a big win for Norage. He was out of the tournament if he didn't win that match, or that game, rather.
He's been out of this tournament like 3 times already, so he might as well carry on hanging on by his fingernails.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Raven mentioned it in the pre-show. Norage did not think he made top 8. He thought his tiebreakers were too bad.
Yeah.
And then we discovered that he did, in fact, make top 8.
And then nobody could find him because he thought he was done. So he was walking around this massive exhibition having a look around at what's going on at DreamHack. And they found him with seconds to spare.
And he turned around. The man with multiple lives. Zumpp looking focused, though.
Focused, but a little bit sort of...
He strikes me as a guy who, like, would be having the time of his life, having a beer, hanging out with friends. And he would look like this.
Yeah, a bit like Sottle, right?
He's like, yeah.
Yeah, Sottle actually has fun, but you have to ask him. Are you having fun? Yes. Okay, cool.
Wow, Sottle's having a lot of fun.
Yeah, he actually answered.
Aggro Druid is a fairly strong contender versus Rogue. I think that's one of the reasons why it's been a strong performance in this tournament. A lot of players brought Rogue. There are decks that are strong to it, but they make sacrifices elsewhere.
Yeah, this is why I love this lineup, because it is a classic Last Hero lineup. It's not picked the best decks. It's picked the best decks for the job it needs to do. And
about the same deck list as Norage as well, I believe. It looks pretty card for card where their Aggro Druid lists are concerned.
It wouldn't surprise me, like, even though they practice in different groups. Obviously, the Finnish community's put in a lot of time on this one and done extremely well. So it wouldn't surprise me if some decks ended up being card for card, even from different groups.
The one difference, Norage has a copy of Snow Flipper Penguin.
Okay.
And there's a second copy of Direwolf Alpha in Zumpp's list instead. Other than that, they are identical cards.
Yeah, and they feel like very interchangeable cards to me.
I quite like the Alphas personally.
Is that because we're old school, though, and we remember zoos and stuff? Or
I just think it's a good card.
He's just a good
You got
card.
Marco Yashiraj, you have Patches.
But then if you play the Penguin, you've got a lot more things to buff on turn 2, turn 3.
Yeah, it's a Penguin.
And you get to play a Penguin.
It's cute. For me.
Oh, Admiral's not doing cute today. It's a serious day now.
This is serious. There's no fun in Hearthstone.
No fun on Sundays.
This is quite a hefty captain here. Norage currently does not have a way to kill this captain, and that means Power of the Wild is problem.
Yeah, Rogue just struggles with wide boards and high health minions until he gets those Slayers. Do you really want to Vile Spine like a 115? You probably have to, but...
A 115? Does it have taunt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to Vile Spine that.
I mean, but you don't want to. It's like a 3-mana card for your comboed 5-mana card.
No, I think I want to.
But I think you have to.
Look at that turn. That is a lot of damage.
This is why Rogue struggles against this. It's just got... It just doesn't deal with wide. I wonder how long it is before fans start going back in and spell damage and stuff.
Now, the answer back here for Norage is still quite good, though. It's the Coin Vile Spine on the taunt.
Yep.
You run the Shaku into the small pirate, and then you can Shadow Step the Vile Spine and try to cut into some damage. But a problem with that is Zumpp is he drew the Scalebane. If he drew Living Mana or Scalebane on this turn, it was trouble for Zumpp. I'm sorry, it was trouble for Norage.
But he's going with that plan. He's got to go with that plan. You've got to tidy up as much as you dare.
Oh, that is awful.
Yeah, this game doesn't go to turn 10, win or lose.
No.
So it goes to turn 10 if you win, if your opponent doesn't concede, but that's it. So yeah, never going to be played.
Oh my. Follow-up as well. And a wise attack here from Zumpp.
Yes.
Mop up that Vile Spine and shut off the potential for a Shadow Step.
So how does Norage get out of this, given what we can see? Given what he can see, it's a lot harder, but what we can see, is there a way to set up to get through his Living Mana?
I think the captain's a start, but Zumpp's got he's got the Galaka Crawlers waiting.
Yeah.
These things are hiding under bushes and under rocks and stuff, waiting for that Southsea captain to pop out.
So
Yeah, they should really be more careful, these pirates. Like, you know, maybe get someone in the crow's nest.
It's dangerous on the high seas.
It is. It's very dangerous out there. Captain used to have a parrot, but, you know, that flew off.
Yeah.
They're having a rough time. People used to say that pirates were good, but they're a little bit crazy.
They're quite good still.
Yeah.
They're good enough to make someone play 2-mana 2/3s.
Don't knock 2-mana 2/3s. Arena. Players everywhere.
Yikes. Crypt Lord to add to it.
Wow. It just looks like ABC Hearthstone for this turn. Read the cards, do what they say, and off you go.
This, I think Norage, without drawing Vile Spine again, is just dead. And I think even if he draws Vile Spine, he's still dead a lot of time. He actually doesn't have a combo activator left for it, yeah. This is
Yeah, if people weren't convinced by Zumpp last DreamHack, because it was his first time, maybe sometimes people get a bit skeptical. Other casters are telling us he's good, you know, because he reached the semi-finals, they're hyping him up. He's done it again, is that enough?
well, you can tell he's good because he's played extremely well. I think he's
That's a good way of deciding.
He's cut his corners at just about every single spot. Looking at the previous game, the Twisting Nether versus the Defile, I'm not sure which one is better in that situation. My
Right.
instinct tells me it was the Defile. But looking back, the Defile would have saved him later on. But you can see his reasoning throughout the game. His plan is consistent. He hedges his bets. He saves for the right moments. And that's the understanding of a true player, is they know the matchups and how they work.
Yeah.
Beautiful execution.
Never looks flustered, ever.
And this turn is insurmountable now for Norage. Swashbuckler into Spreading Plague is the only thing that's going to keep him alive.
We've seen things like that this tournament already. Nope.
That's not good enough. Norage going to take the last damage himself, and Zumpp moves on to the top 4, 3 games to 1 over Norage.
Wow.
Really impressive from Zumpp there, to be honest. It's just the more and more I watch, we've talked a lot about him in the past 2 days, about how well he's performed. But again, he's just proving that it sounds like maybe even like a negative, but he always does just enough every single turn. Never too much, never too little. It's just enough to keep him going. And it was a really impressive performance. I was pretty happy with that one.
But that's another identifier of a marquee player is you don't have to do everything in the game. You don't have to kill your opponent and all their minions and gain 30 life and assemble your combo. Ideally, you spend all your cards, all your mana, you deal exactly 30 damage.
Yep.
Zumpp is coming pretty darn close to that as he's trying to stifle his opponent's window of opportunity to kill him instead. And all the disruption tools he brings and how he partitions his resources really speaks to that understanding.
And then he can just play aggro druid.
It's a good deck.
You know, but that's what
It
we're
seems to
saying.
have worked the few times it's happened,
We're
right?
saying how good he is at control. He's just plowing through the field with aggro druid at the same time.
I think he's just displaying a very strong understanding of his lineup, and that just shows that it's not only, you've not only pieced together your lineup and said this looks good, you've actually practiced it, know exactly how it works, know exactly how each deck goes together. But a little bit unfortunate for Norage, he is knocked out. This is pretty much just a win, continue. If you lose, you go home, as is the top 8 here at the Hearthstone Grand Prix. Looking forward to carrying on. It's going to be great. We've got some great matches coming up.
Yeah, we got still a lot more rounds left. There's 3 more of the top 8 to play. There's 2 in the quarterfinal. I'm sorry, in the semifinals, and then of course we've got to crown the champion. Last DreamHack of the year.
I love day 3 where you get to know the players. You get to see all of the players. You get to see all 8. Then you get to choose who you like and follow their progress through the whole day.
Also, as well, the last DreamHack of this metagame, we've got an expansion coming out in just a week and a half, weekish. So it's a pretty big deal. We can check out the updated bracket now, just to see what everything looks like, and to remind you guys how we are looking in this top 8. You can see Zumpp moved on there past Norage. I believe we do have Unid versus Cha-Cha Boys coming up next. Looking forward to seeing that one play out there. Pretty exciting bracket, actually. Not full of the star-studded names we are maybe used to, but all of these players definitely have interesting things to watch out for.
Despite that, we had over 240 players show up for the tournament as well.
Yeah, and it's not a weak bracket. There'll be people at home saying they've not heard of these players. We've heard of most of these guys before this tournament, and they're regulars on the circuit, making wins on lots of ladder finishes, all that sort of stuff, week in, week out. They're just not necessarily guys who've had a chance on the top 8. Today is their day.
Tournaments are hard. It's 9 rounds of play over 2 days.
I agree.
That's a lot of Hearthstone that you have to make it through. I was speaking to with Bunny Hopper, with Casey, a lot of complexity guys that were out there. Tyler showed up to the tournament as well.
Yep.
They all were having mixed performances. Some of the players were making it to that 5-2 mark, and that's a breaking point. If you lose one more match, you're out. A 6-3 record is still very respectable, nothing to scoff at. It's just not good enough to find you a top 16 in a 240-person field.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge climb for all these players, and we've talked a lot about Zumpp. There's plenty more going to be battling to get into those high spots and potentially become the champion. We've got Cha-Cha Boys versus Unid coming up. Just going to get the players ready, so don't go anywhere.